feel like I get a bit sniffling.
Trying everything we can. I completely appreciate your position, and it's not, it's something we are trying to resolve. I understand you've spoken with Philip, and you've got someone coming on site from Tuesday. Yeah, so it's just how best we can manage the next days till then.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. I mean, we've kind of sort of gone round in circles a few times about what we can do, what are our kind of red line marks, or our events and like that. But it'd be really good to hear kind of anything that you can suggest that we can do to leave it. Because the one thing that we are stuck with is this one, which is our problem. And
so today and tomorrow, the event ends at 4:30.
Well, it ends at 4. Heidi today, she's good. She'll be done by 4.
The problem is I started at 7:30.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I mean, I can work all night. I just need an
hour
and a lunch break.
I know.
It's like, I brought this up a week ago on the Zooms and meetings, and you told me that we'd try and figure something out, but like, it needs to just be like, switch off for a lunch break. The only option I can see is if we don't film and record the station. I just don't really see any alternative. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can't continue to work with it.
Okay, so there's only, does it matter the flexibility on when that hour in the day comes?
No, but it has to be like, it can't be an hour from one finishes to one starts, because that involves like 15-20 minutes.
No, off either side. Yeah.
So that's why it almost has to be like a proper gap, so I can pack down, get the recordings all set and done, have a break, set up for the next one, and then start the next one.
Yeah. Okay, alright. We'll need to take this higher, but yeah.
Because we've already, basically we're not going to do the session today, because we just did that one and then the next one.
Okay, alright.
So what does that mean? You're not going to do the session next Tuesday?
We need to break.
No.
Yeah.
What does it mean? No live streaming, no camera moving, no nothing.
No recording. I've spoken to Philip because you still need some sort of setup in the room that allows
audio.
So we can leave the audio on.
So you just leave the microphones on?
We can leave stuff on, but like as you saw, we tried in the first session an alternative setup and it didn't work.
Yeah, no worries. So it's basically just so now we can understand what we're going to have to do is basically go to these event leads, because they're not concept, they're externals, and just tell them like, we're really sorry we had technical difficulties, our whole system's crashed, we can't live stream your event. So what I just want to know is, what we can do then, if you're going to get up and go take a break, is have people on stage, have microphones, they speak into them and it goes into the headset, that's that. You leave the camera on at the back, so whatever's behind their head is themselves?
Yeah, so
because some of them have presentations, so can they just bring it on a USB, stick it into that laptop and put that on the screen, or?
So some women need to do that over Zoom. So if they have presentations or videos to play, you need to do that over Zoom and you will need to share it on their behalf.
Cool. So for the next person, so not this one at one, but the one after that you're not going to do, I'll just get the woman to bring the USB and give it to you, Makoti. Cool. And then, so it won't be live streamed, it won't be recorded.
So you can do it through
From Zoom?
We can leave one camera on and the sound desk on. I mean, to be honest, the headphone system is really bad quality, so it already sounds quite bad. So there's going to be no sound mixing, which will make it sound even worse.
Okay.
But we can leave. Basically, we'll just have to leave all the microphones and everything on.
Cool. So if people are chit chatting, it will come through, and then
Everything will come
that's
through,
their problem. No worries. So we'll hopefully record. Great. And then the camera.
There'll be one camera, so it won't cut between wides and close up. So just
Yeah,
be
that's fine. That one.
wide.
And so that one, will that go to the Zoom?
Yeah.
So you can record.
Yeah, you'll get a feed that has the room audio and that wide camera, and then everything else you'll have to do via Zoom.
Okay. And then that recording is a different process for making that available via our website.
You can get that. It'll be much lower quality because it'll just
Yeah.
be the Zoom recording rather than the camera and stuff.
Okay, but would that be?
Yeah, so that will still just save. You can even save the. Can you record from your end?
So
Does it let you record from your computer?
Yes, it should.
So you should be able to just record to the cloud then. The only problem is with the Zoom speakers. So the Zoom records whoever has the best audio basically. So a lot of the Zoom speakers have really bad microphones, and basically the room noise actually has been overpowering that.
yeah.
So we have to mute.
And then switch.
Yeah, but you won't be able to do that. If you mute this camera, you won't be able to unmute it.
Let's keep
Don't
it as
worry,
simple as we
that's
can for this.
Yeah.
I think
We'll just give them a shoddy recording
Okay.
at this point, you know.
I think keep it as simple as we can. So you'll do the presentation. Is there any of that? If you're doing the presentation through Zoom, they go on that laptop there.
No, so
how does it get
So
done?
we can just take that laptop away to stop
So
confusion.
would they, that must need to be the next slide.
So they would need to tell you what to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, I'll let them know. So just let me stay here and do this now. Run away and go to lose the conversation. So
It could work.
Well,
Again.
We need to do let's test it. Let's use this as our.
So please find attached agenda run sheet which indicates which speaker has slides. That's fine. Okay, so the one virtual speaker for the secretary, he's going to share his own slides, so that's what we've been doing anyway, so that's fine. And then I just have the presentation from the one. And then, should I send that to you now or should I send it to you now? Okay, let me get you. I'm going to send you the agenda.
1, 2.
They just said confirming with Secretary General saying off Commonwealth. So that's why they're waiting. But yeah, you were here for another 10 minutes.
Sorry about that. We're just waiting for our Secretary General. She'll be joining you.
Okay.
And she was just wrapping up another meeting, so she'll be here shortly, okay?
I mean, I think I can stretch till 20 past, but then I've really got to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for your understanding.
That's all right. It's always
Testing. No?
Try again.
Testing. Yes, you can hear me. Great. Good evening or good afternoon rather. It's been a long day. Good afternoon and welcome to this 4th installment of our Commonwealth High-Level Intergenerational Dialogue on Climate Change. Again, we have distinguished panelists with us here, and then many of you from youth networks, youth-led organizations, and of course interested young people to ask questions of our high-level panelists. So without further ado, I want to hand you over to Mr. Nigel Toppin. And I want to just briefly read his bio, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh,
let's skip that.
Let's skip
sure.
that. in the interest of time, because I've got to dash.
Sure, Mr. Topping.
Thank you very much. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because I have to dash. Apologies. First of all, I'd like to thank the Commonwealth Youth Programme and the Commonwealth Youth Climate Network for curating. This is a really important day. This is the day to listen to the voices of young people engaged in the climate crisis in all sorts of capacities all over the world. Gonzalo Munoz and I, and our role as high-level climate action champions, get to work with everybody who's not a national government, which is a lot of people. And I think one of the big themes for us this week is the massive ramp-up of climate ambition from all parts of society. And we'll see it on the streets tomorrow and today, but we've also now got over 8,000 businesses, cities, investors, and universities in the race to zero, and over 2,500 in the race to resilience. And in the race to zero numbers, that includes over 1,000 universities. So there'll be tens of thousands of young people actively being educated in universities, which themselves are driving the transition to net zero on their campuses, but also in their education and their research. And one of my the favorite bits of my job is that my mandate from the UN is to be pushy. So whenever I meet anyone who's got an ambitious idea, I say, that's good, do 10 times as much. And one of my favorite examples of this, doesn't always work, right, is a year and a half ago, I heard about this amazing group in the UK, the Ashton Trust, about to launch a program called Let's Get to Zero to try and get 5 schools to net zero by 2030. And they explained it to me and they were very excited. And I said, that sounds great. Why don't you do it for every school in the UK? And they were like, okay. And today it's 700 schools, not just 5, 700 are committed to net zero. And next year they'll start to look to make that a global program. And actually I think the Commonwealth would be a really good vector for making that global. You know, we haven't been able to travel as much in this year that has lasted 2 years, but I have had the good fortune of engaging with a lot of youth leaders and youth activists physically on the few trips I've been able to make to Kenya, Egypt, the Caribbean, small island states, a lot of Commonwealth countries there, and more recently remotely through youth entrepreneurs and leaders in Ethiopia, Singapore, Nigeria. And I'm always impressed with the depth of sophistication of engagement. I think the youth voice is too often in the press portrayed as just one of anger. And I know there is anger there. A lot of us feel anger at how slow this process is taking, and it's justified. But what I'm most impressed with is when that anger is turned into agency that is constructive and specific. I just received the youth demands from the COI process this morning. Really good example, very specific. Pushy, yes, but specific. And that specificity is really important for leaders to be able to engage with it. If you're just told you're not doing enough or do more, it's not as helpful as phase out coal by this date or implement this law to change the way that buildings are built. Just quickly, in our high-level champions team, we have a lot of young people in our team. We also experimented this year for the first time with a youth fellowship program. As always with experiments, there were some bumps on the road, but overall really successful. So we're going to extend that and enlarge that next year. I just want to end with an insight that for me has been quite profound that came about a month ago when I, on 2 consecutive days, was in 2 events with young climate leaders. On the first day, I was doing a workshop on how to be an agent for change. And one of the things I did was I asked the young climate leaders to, in small groups, talk about what their emotional response was to climate change. And mostly it's negative, like anger, sadness, frustration, overwhelm, guilt at not doing enough. The next day, I was asked to give the closing remarks at an event with Italian industries about what they were doing. And one of the young climate leaders from the day before was asked to give the closing remarks. So I said my normal stuff about systems change, exponential change, things are going to go much faster than you think. And then the young woman who'd been in the works the next day took the stage and said, yesterday Nigel asked us to look at our emotions and it was guilt, anger, sadness. Today I'm listening to everything that is going on and I'm filled with hope. But I'm also angry that no one's telling us about all this stuff that's happening. So one of the things that I'm really committed to going forward is a lot more information sharing with young entrepreneurs, young climate activists, young leaders in every walk of society about the things that are happening that we can all, when we know about them, help to amplify. Because I think there's a lot of really good stuff happening in the world. What we need to do is take it all to scale really fast. And your voice, your network, your leadership is going to be a crucial part in doing that. So with that, I'll end my short remarks, and I'm afraid I have to dash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Topping. And I'd like to move on with our agenda. We have our network coordinator, Lenika Roden, who will join us virtually to deliver remarks. I know that we have done the agenda in a bit of a different order, but we will start with Lenika, who will give us her remarks. Let's just get Lenika on screen. Of course, I know that you have, here is Lenika. Welcome, Lenika. Hello from Scotland.
Hi, everyone. Allow me the distinct pleasure of greeting the special guests, Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, Queen Counsel, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat, Nigel Topping, UN's high-level climate action champion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen from all around the world representing your countries and participating in this high-level intergenerational dialogue. On a phenomenon we must strive to mitigate against and adapt to. My name is Lenika Roden, and I hail from the beautiful island of Jamaica. I serve as the Pan-Commonwealth Coordinator of the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network, otherwise known as CYCN. CYCN was established in 2009 during the Young Commonwealth Climate Summit in London, where 150 young environmental leaders gathered to share experiences and expertise. Our aim is to build the capacity of young people in their endeavors to address climate change and other environmental issues. We support actions that empower young people to translate climate change programs into effective policies that will have a measurable impact on youth well-being. To date, we have had a myriad of national, regional, and pan-Commonwealth projects, from tree planting projects in Cameroon, Kenya, and Jamaica, to regional discussions on energy transition and climate change, youth and sustainable development, to pan-Commonwealth campaigns engaging over 100,000 young people across the Commonwealth, such as the Youth Lead SDG 13. We understand that climate change presents unique challenges, particularly to small island developing states. Think about it. The difficulties that all countries face in effectively coping with climate change impacts are exaggerated in small islands due to the fact that they're small, isolated, they have an increased amount of exposure and underlying vulnerabilities. The associated development challenges from sea level rise, altered rainfall patterns, and storm surges threaten to reverse progress made towards the Sustainable Development Goals. These impacts, loss of coastal areas due to sea level rise, loss of life and property due to tropical cyclones, and health-related issues due to heat waves, all affect youth, displacing us, disrupting us, and distancing us. Ladies and gentlemen, if we even consider the small changes, such as higher air temperatures and changes in rainfall patterns, our way of life has been tremendously altered. In many island nations, significant portions of communities and assets are located in coastal zones, resulting in high levels of exposure to escalating hazards. Many small islands also have large ocean territories, meaning that marine resources and biodiversity are similarly highly exposed to climate change. Vulnerability speaks to the complex nature of the preconditions that exist. Economic and social circumstances affect small islands' ability to adapt to climate change. Sectors that drive their economies, such as tourism, fisheries, agriculture, are highly reliant on conducive environmental conditions and are vulnerable to climate change. Coming out of the series of pre-Cop26 Pan-Commonwealth and regional summits held by the CYCN, here are a few questions you have to ask. 1, how seriously are government officials taking climate change? 2, how can we collaborate with key stakeholders to solicit support for projects? 3, where are the opportunities for youth in climate change as it regards to jobs, research, and funding? Where they exist, and can these opportunities be expanded? Are there formal mechanisms in place to include youth in decision-making? Let us not forget that young people are the heartbeat of development, and their importance at different levels of decision-making is paramount. How they feel about climate change, as Nigel would have highlighted, guilt, anger, sadness, is largely as a result of how youth with a passion are not getting the same return. Let us together work and implement effective changes that will increase youth involvement and secure future generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leneka. And I want to hand over to our Secretary General, who is leading this dialogue. Secretary General, are you going to sit or you want to stand? It's up to you.
Firstly, a warm good afternoon to everyone. Our Commonwealth youth, the young people around the world, the stakeholders, the well-wishers. This is our moment to have a really good, interactive, intergenerational dialogue. But can I tell you that I'm really only 21? So I'm with the under 30s in this group. Because from Paris to Bonn, to Madrid, and now here in Glasgow, and at each COP that I have taken part in, the opportunity to engage directly with young people has been cool. Because these COPs, and now this COP26 deliberation, will directly affect all of those to whom we now speak who are under the age of 30. And I want to say to you, you are not the leaders of tomorrow. You are the leaders of today. And what you do, what you choose to do, and how you choose to do it will determine our future. So seize this opportunity and know that you are truly as powerful as you choose to be. And I'm really happy to be here for another year to engage with you at this critical juncture in our history of COP26, when the whole eyes of the world are on us. And the actions that the leaders took this week will impact on the future of our whole planet. We are the first generation to really suffer from the aberrant consequences of this climate crisis. But we are the last generation to have the privilege to try to do something about it. And the consequence, therefore, of the actions that we are taking now, or the consequences of our inactions, are really critical, because they will disproportionately be felt by those who could shoulder the burden in the end, which will be our youth and our vulnerable communities. Therefore, we must engage and include all of these groups, particularly our young people, particularly those who are disadvantaged and vulnerable, in this discussion. And we must work even harder together across the generations, across the social groups and the countries, in order to solve these far-reaching and often interconnected impacts of climate change. The pre-COP statement delivered by the CYCN around youth driving ambitions, sustainable recovery, and others show that they are very concerned about the impact of climate change on vulnerable groups and would like to be part of the solutions. And that statement is a statement that I hope every single leader, not just in our Commonwealth, but in the world, will, and I hope they have, read. Because young people account for 60% of our Commonwealth. And you know that our Commonwealth now has almost 2.6 billion people. So the young people of our Commonwealth, are the majority, not the minority. And the passion and the commitment and the vibrancy of our young people is truly inspiration. But this vibrancy has to be turned into action. And it's encouraging, therefore, to see so many young people responding positively and being inspired and willing to take action. And last night, I was with the young people from the Pacific, and they really raised my spirit by their warmth, by their passion, but also I was taken aback by the warm way in which they appreciated what the leaders of the Pacific have done for so many years. And I want us all to remember that young people have not been on this journey on their own in this fight. We in the Commonwealth have been fighting the issue of climate change since 1989. The Commonwealth was the first in 1987 to pull together a group of Commonwealth brilliant scientists who analyzed what was happening. And in 1987, that is 5 years before the first COP, we said climate change posed an existential threat. And remember, there are 32 small states in our Commonwealth. And those 32 small states were the ones who were fashioning and suffering the most first. And then in 1989, our leaders came together and committed themselves to the Langkawi Declaration. And that declaration was before probably most of our young people were born. Please go and read it, because we foreshadowed tragically everything that has happened from 1989 to now. We said in 1989, if we do not work now, our countries would face this existential threat. So please know that the leaders in the Commonwealth have been with the young people, beating this drum, and now is our turn to make sure the whole world hears us, because we are now on code red. So young people, we stay with you, we will remain with you, and in our Commonwealth space, the Commonwealth Youth Climate Network has been leading the charge for our young people, constantly finding new ways to amplify youth voices, increasing the visibility of youth action, promoting opportunities that will build the capacity of young people, and youth-led organizations as part of our network. And they have highlighted through the Action Challenge and at the event that we had on Monday, spotlighting innovative and transformative youth climate action, that community-led action is just as important in the fight against climate change. But they have also shown that young people are key actors in social and economic development, and not just bystanders. And the Commonwealth continues to work towards ensuring that young people's views and ideas are heard, and that young people have a seat at the table with decision makers. And we are also engaging our young people as active change agents and in the delivery of tangible, quantifiable programs on the ground. And the Commonwealth is making interventions in key areas, and our response to climate change includes work in the following areas: SIDS and small states, the climate finance and debt management, use of climate data for decision making, youth participation and mainstreaming, natural resources governance, sustainable energy, ocean and ocean governance, and proposed living lands charter. So all the things that we did for the oceans, the blue charter, we will now have the land charter, but we have common sensing. So we're triangulating land, sea, and sky. So I really want to hear from all of you. I want to know what your dreams are, your thoughts are, your ideas, what works for you, what does not work for you. And this is your opportunity also to question me. So today's dialogue, the fourth dialogue, I hope will allow us to share what we are all going to do to combat the climate crisis, and that we'll come up with the ideas and the solutions as to how we can collaborate and collaborate better for future action. And we will actually come up with the way in which we will safeguard our planet and successfully deliver a common future for all our citizens by connecting, by innovating and implementing transformative actions. I want to thank all of the winners of my innovation awards, because you know that those innovation awards are going to make the difference, be the difference. Many of you will have heard me say that human genius got us into this mess. The Industrial Revolution was human genius. Human genius is going to have to get us out, and quickly. And the joy is that I know amongst our young people, we have that genius. We need to find it, hone it, partner with it, and deliver that change so that 1.5 to stay alive actually gets delivered. And I thank you for doing this in advance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, SG, or Secretary General. I know we shorten it often. So we have, I know many of you stopped me in the corridors asking about the event and wanting to interact with SG. So now is not the time to be shy. Now is the time to ask your questions to the Secretary General directly. And our dialogue is going to go a bit different this year, of course, because of the pandemic. We could not accommodate everyone. So we do have some regional correspondents joining in via Zoom from across the Commonwealth. And so they will be up on screen shortly. But as you know, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, find its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Those are the words of Frantz Fanon. What is our mission? And I mean, as young people, seemingly we have multiple missions, multiple issues to tackle. Of course, climate change cuts across many or all of them because it threatens our very existence. I want to assure you, as we get our panelists on screen, our correspondents on screen, I want to assure you, as I did a couple weeks ago in the Youth Climate and Sustainability Summit held by the Commonwealth and the CYCN, we are listening. The Secretary General is listening. The Commonwealth is listening. And she's ably supported by a team of staff who work ceaselessly to ensure that young people are heard, that they have a seat at the table, and that we get your ideas on board. So I want to throw it over to Cavell Baer, who is joining us from the Caribbean. Cavell is the national coordinator of the Trinidad and Tobago chapter of the CYCN, and she's bringing some regional perspectives and a question to you, SG.
Thank you. Excellencies, every hurricane season, nations across the Caribbean brace for potential impact from storms. Each year, one or several nations experience a catastrophic event and the rest mobilize action to support. As the risks increase, I wonder what this response would resemble in the future. During the pandemic, we have seen what such a response could look like under dire constraints, but climate change poses a threat of unprecedented compounding challenges. Young people in Barbuda will have traumatized after Hurricane Irma in 2017. My colleagues from Haiti lament the dire situation they face with seemingly no remedy, but they are dedicated to changing their circumstances. This week, our leaders have reiterated calls for access to finance for climate mitigation and adaptation. As large ocean states, we need support to capitalize on our resources, to diversify our economies, and offer a just green transition, especially for our youth. So my question is, in light of the concurrence of Youth Work Week, how can we compensate young people for the work they are contributing to climate action? Thank you.
Well, the first thing that I think we need to make clear is that we have a funding gap. The whole point of us driving to make sure that the countries who have contributed most to this climate crisis fund those who have suffered the most from it is so that that $100 billion will be delivered to enable us to adapt and mitigate the climate. And so what we are all doing here at COP is to help those who have made that commitment honor those commitments. The commitments were made in 2009. And some have said this has been like waiting for Godot. Well, Godot has to arrive. And we, through the Climate Finance Access Hub, have already been able to deliver into the hands of our member states $44.1 million US. But that has come from just £1,500,000. But we know we have $762 million in the pipeline. So our determination is not just to dream of this money, but to deliver it. And the focus has to be that we need to make sure that that 100 billion, which is the minimum that's needed, has to be delivered. And as I said earlier, 50% of it has to be for mitigation, but 50% of it has to be adaptation. And young people being part of that call, making sure that we make it uncomfortable for those who make commitments and then do not honor them. So this is not a COP for more talk. It's a COP to focus on action. And I am encouraged that we've got more action promised, but I think all of our young people need to be monitoring, evaluating, and if necessary, put a pin on the chair of everyone who has made a commitment so they can't sit down until that pin is removed because they have delivered on their promises.
Thank you, SG. I want to take it to the audience. If you do have a question for the Secretary General, please raise your hand and the microphone will be passed to you. I am not surprised that our first question comes from Kakembu.
Thank you so much, SG. As one of the beneficiaries of the Commonwealth Youth Program, I'm really impressed by how far the Commonwealth Secretariat is going to support youth. But my concern is still on the access to climate finance. Yes, you have mentioned that you have been helping member states access, but then youth are still missing in that gap. Right? What's the Commonwealth's plan to get this climate finance accessed by the youth, especially those in the last mile communities?
Well, I think one of the important opportunities we have, as you know, is that the Commonwealth is mainstreaming youth in everything we do. So instead of it just being an add-on, it has to be an integral part of all that we do. And so if you look at what we're doing in terms of every single ministerial meeting, it is focused on how do we deliver the Sustainable Development Goals. So from Sustainable Development Goal 1 to the Sustainable Development Goal 17, which is about partnership, every single one of them. And so as we meet as health ministers, we are talking about delivering the SDGs, but women and girls and young people are integral to that. As we meet as education ministers, we are looking at how do you deliver the Sustainable Development Goals, but it has to be delivered for everybody. As we meet as finance ministers, as foreign ministers, as sports ministers, as women ministers, every ministerial meeting in the Commonwealth that we host will be integral to our delivery. You will have seen that when we looked at the Innovation Awards, I was very, very specific that we needed to have the Youth Innovation Awards. And you've seen that we've got the most amazing young innovators. You will see the innovator from St. Lucia who did brilliant work with sargassum weed. And seeing his face on the front page of Forbes last year, what a moment for all of us. So what the Secretariat is doing is making sure we can spotlight the brilliance of our young people. So we hope that we will be able to engage those who want to invest in young people in a very substantive way. And every presentation, as you probably noticed, that I make, I always say 60% of our Commonwealth is under the age of 30, and we have to include them. So it is about advocacy, it is about making policy, it is about integrating, but it's also encouraging young people to make sure you yourselves are not left behind. So don't be silent. And don't just think about what other people can do. Say to each of yourselves, what am I going to do? Not tomorrow, what am I going to do today? As a result of coming to this meeting, every single one of us should be saying to ourselves, what are the 3 things that I'm going to do as a result of coming and participating that I would not have done if I had not come? And then I'd like you all to send that in to me, and I'll try and deliver.
A challenge there to the young people in the audience. And I want to take us to our correspondent from Asia. On the line, we have Sakshi Krishna. She is a member of the CYCN India. Sakshi?
Hello, everyone. Honorable Commonwealth Secretariat Patricia Scotland and national delegates joining us from everywhere across the world. Before I get to my question, I'd like to share a few thoughts, if that's okay with the Secretariat. I am Sakshi M. Krishna. I'm 23 years old. I'm an environmentalist, a climate advocate, and also a founder of a youth-led environmental organization called My Earth, based in India. It is an absolute honor to be able to speak here today. Climate and biodiversity crisis, like most of us believe or are made to believe, are just not environmental issues anymore. They are a full-blown threat to agriculture, people, economies, food security, peace, and health. The recent IPCC report, like it has been previously mentioned, is a wake-up call to all of humanity that we are heading towards a sixth mass extinction, and there's no going back from this point. It is our futures that are at stake, and I urge the world leaders, including the Commonwealth, to not wait until 2030 or 2050 to take action. All we have is right now. The science has been crystal clear, and the solutions are right in front of us. If we fail to act on it, billions of lives and livelihood will be put at high risk of destruction, and the most vulnerable groups of people will bear the brunt of impact of climate change. If we are to succeed in the fight against climate change, inclusivity also forms an important aspect in achieving a safe future for us all. Asia is falling even further behind its efforts in limiting the greenhouse gas emissions, and they are projected to increase by 34% by 2030 compared to the previous levels. Asian societies and economies will be increasingly vulnerable to climate risk without adaptation and mitigation. The gap between the commitments made in these global conferences, such as COP, and actual actions must be shrunk by fulfilling promises. Such ambitious climate action will require realignment of finance and investment towards green industries. Without concerted action, carbon neutrality is not within the reach of Asia region by 2050. There is simply no room for insufficient ambition, and there's no scope for our world leaders to return home empty-handed. We demand accountability from big corporations that have created drastic effects that we are witnessing today. They should bear the greatest responsibility in paying the cost to transition towards a 100% fossil fuel-free future. To fail is just not an option. We simply cannot wait for the end to near in order to take action. Global communities need to act together to achieve a sustainable future for us young people and for the generations to come. I am 23 years old, and I'm scared and I'm angry because of the inaction surrounding the climate urgency, and our futures are threatened as time is running out. We as young people are fighting, and we are calling upon world leaders, institutions, and stakeholders to join forces to build a climate resilient future for us all. COP26 should mark the beginning of the end of climate crisis and shift towards an environmental revolution that sees the end of fossil fuel, illegal mining, deforestation, and animal abuse. There is hope to overturn the catastrophic impact of climate and biodiversity crises. And as a young person, I'm hopeful that we can achieve the sustainable development goals if we put our hearts into action now. And that being said, I'd also like to say that all eyes are on the decisions that are going to be made during COP26. We are watching you, and as you make the decisions about our future and the future of the planet. Finally, I'd like to end by saying Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family. We are all one giant family in this fight against climate change, and no one should be left behind. No community should be left to fend for themselves. I urge and request the developed countries and established economies to build cordial relations with the developing and underdeveloped countries and uplift the communities by providing assistance. Nature is our greatest gift, and we will share its resources with everyone in our family. And my question to the Commonwealth Secretary General is, what measures the Commonwealth is taking to address the gap in lack of representation from the most vulnerable and marginalized communities at COP and other global conferences?
Well, firstly, Sashni, I need to say immediately, I agree with your analysis. And I hope all of you are familiar with the trenchant work that the Commonwealth Secretariat has been doing in partnership with our member states. I think it was absolutely critical that our leaders in 2018 put this climate crisis right at the top of their agenda. I also think that the work that we have done as a secretariat on the Climate Finance Access Hub, on the Common Sensing Programme, on the Disaster Risk Finance portal, on the Blue Charter, now the Living Lands Charter, the work we're doing right now at this COP on the CSET agenda, the transformation that we want to go to green and blue economy, and making sure that we're putting as much pressure as we can on all the institutional entities to come with us. And what we're seeing for the first time in COP, and I've been to a number of COPs, is that people aren't arguing anymore about the science. They're not arguing anymore about the fact that we are now on code red. They're not arguing that this threat that we have been talking about is not existential. Everybody is accepting those issues as a fact. What this COP is about is not about the responsibility and why we are here, but an acceptance that we are here, and now we have to work out what we are going to do about it. Not tomorrow, but today. And that's a quantum shift, but there is so much for us all to do, because talk is cheap. Delivering it is a whole different ball of wax. And what the Secretariat has been focusing on is that delivery, implementation. And I believe we can do this, but only if we do it in partnership and together.
I am aware that the SG has to leave shortly. If I can ask Andrew to just ask his question briefly, succinctly, and skip the statement. We'll come back to the statement later on. But if you can ask your question, Andrew, and then we will wrap there.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Secretary. My question, I will just go directly to my question, even though I have candidate statements I would like to, very important to read out, because I want to build on what you just said earlier. I noticed, which is, it's obvious to the general public, that we've been having more of what has to be done, what is currently being done. We've been talking about what we should do than what's done. We've been having more talks than actions. And so, but I will get back to that. So it is understood generally that climate finance and political will are some of the most important factors to achieving global climate action, referring to adaptation and mitigation. And then, of course, we know that the Commonwealth, with over 30 small member states, is helping to address the gap in climate finance through the CFA, that's the Climate Finance Access Hub, and that is very, very impressive. That gives us hope. However, on the political will aspect, what programs are in place to help to address the gap in political will? Because we're seeing more of talks than actions globally, and even amongst Commonwealth member states. So I don't know if you would like to help us with that more.
Political will, I think we do certainly have the political will in our Commonwealth countries. It is interesting to note that every time Commonwealth leaders have come together at a Commonwealth meeting of heads, there has been unanimity on the final outcome. Now, I'm not saying that that unanimity comes easily, or that we can take it for granted. But if you look at every single CHOGM since 1989 to today, you will see Commonwealth countries showing that political will. It's very important that we remember, before Cop21, where the Paris Agreement was settled, it was said to get 2 degrees would never happen. Some people said hell would freeze over before we get 2 degrees. what happened in Malta. And you remember Malta's CHOGM happened in November before Cop21 in Paris. And it was our leaders in the Commonwealth who came up with enforceability, 2 degrees, and a 1.5 aspirational target. So that 1.5 to stay alive happened first in our Commonwealth. And then those 53 leaders took that recipe to Paris. And what did the world then decide? Enforceability, 2 degrees, and a 1.5 aspirational target. So I'm not suggesting that our political will in the Commonwealth comes easily, but it comes. And we are looking forward to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which has now been postponed twice because of COVID. First in 2020, now in 2021. But we hope to have the next CHOGM in Rwanda, in Kigali, in 2022. And I am relatively confident that you will see our leaders coming together again and making a commitment to climate change, because those 32 small states, 25 of whom are island states, know beyond peradventure that this is a fight for our lives. And the rest of the Commonwealth, in solidarity with them, are going to stand. So it's not easy, but it is doable. And I can assure you that I, as your Secretary General, will make sure not only that the leaders understand and hear the voices of the young people, but I will do everything in my power to encourage, enable, and support them as they take the brave decisions which they need to take to make sure that those of us who want to see our big blue planet stay vibrant and healthy actually win. So I said we are all jointly and severally charged on an indictment that we have to deliver for the world so that we never reach that 1.5. And I intend, as a former Attorney General of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, to plead not guilty when that indictment is placed. And I hope all of you will be pleading not guilty with me, because we will have succeeded and our Earth will still be alive for our children and your grandchildren. So thank you very much. This is the end of my participation, but not the end of yours. So keep on talking, come up with the solutions, and let me know what you think. And bye for now.
Thank you everyone. I know that we wanted to get a picture with the Secretary General. We will, yeah. We can stand right here. If we come to the left-hand side, oh, my left, your right, and if you want to be in the picture, you're gonna have to move quickly. You have to go. Okay. So she has to go, and we will try to get that done some other time. I know that there are other questions, and we do have 30 minutes left in our program. And of course, the session is being recorded. So if you do have other questions, please feel free to get them on record. And we can also, don't forget the challenge issued earlier with what are the 3 things that you are going to do, that you're going to deliver to the Secretary General. What are the 3 things that you are going to do, whether in your country, your community, and your region? I really want to get those as well, because again, those ideas, that innovation, those strategies can definitely support the work, not just of the network, but also the work of the Commonwealth. So I want to, if there are any burning questions, I will take those now. If they are not, I admit I am not the Secretary General, so not as not as exciting. Okay, that's okay. I don't feel anyway. So we can go to Aziz, who will do our closing and deliver our closing remarks.
Okay, my name is Aziz Abubakar and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Chair of the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network. I'm also a Be Good and Global Citizen Fellow, and today I'm honored to actually deliver the closing remarks. And it's been an interesting session and learning and hearing a lot from Lenica Rode, who is the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network Pan Commonwealth coordinator, and she has emphasized the critical role that young people need to play in terms of addressing the climate crisis. And also interesting to hear from Nigel Topping, who is the UN's climate high-level climate action champion for COP26. And he has also shared some thoughts around how they are supporting young people. He has also mentioned that they are going to scale up the youth fellowship program for the high level climate champions. So really do thank the Commonwealth Secretary General for honoring young people and being here in person to have this discussion and dialogue with young people. And I'm really just happy to also see all the amazing participants here in person and also online joining us to be in this conversation. And we're really looking forward to seeing your solutions. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aziz. And also, don't forget that tomorrow we will be doing another panel on mainstreaming youth in policy and climate policy post COP26. We have a number of exciting speakers from the CYCN, from our Commonwealth Youth Program, from Yongo as well, from Pecan and others. So again, tomorrow, same time, same place, Saturday at 1 p.m. right here in the Commonwealth Pavilion, where we talk about mainstreaming youth in policy. And we look at some of the best practices, some of the case studies within our Commonwealth states where countries and governments are actually doing that work, what the future holds, how we can support youth innovation and youth climate action. And then, of course, what youth mainstreaming and participation means for youth development and overall national and Commonwealth development. So I'll see you again tomorrow, right here in the pavilion. Thank you.
development and champion and support the contribution they make to local, national and international climate action. At the ACU, through our Blue Charter Fellowships and Commonwealth Scholarships, we're educating the next generation of environmental scientists, whilst our programmes and academic networks are facilitating shared learnings for climate research. Without universities, progress towards carbon emission targets and urgent work on climate adaptation, resilience and the Sustainable Development Agenda will be impossible to achieve. Here at Cop26, the Blue Zone is full of academic researchers whose work is informing our future policies and climate commitments. In the Green Zone and across the city, we are seeing students and the wider university community with social enterprises contribute to the vibrant programme of public engagement and educational activities linked to the conference and beyond. And in communities and campuses across the globe, universities are working with residents, business and other partners to find shared solutions to the most pressing challenges affecting us all. I'm particularly honoured to be chairing this panel today, highlighting how universities can work with the private sector and governments to support national development agendas. Alongside our partners, the Commonwealth Enterprise and Innovation Council, who will be joining us remotely today, CFAS, the Commonwealth Secretariat and the University of the West Indies and the government of Antigua and Barbuda, the ACU is supporting the government in its commitment to transition to a blue economy. This transition will support sustainable development through the diversification of the economy into areas including aquaculture and marine renewable energy, and by enhancing coastal resilience and food security. The government has identified the important role that research and education can play in helping to achieve this goal, and the establishment of a University of West Indies Centre of Excellence in Oceanography and the Blue Economy is central to the transition. We're supporting this endeavour at the Five Islands campus in Antigua by convening our universities from across the Commonwealth to explore innovative partnerships which will enhance the wealth of expertise the University of the West Indies already has, drawing on the diverse research strengths across the different ocean contexts found in Commonwealth states. We'd like to learn from successful models in higher education, in the private sector and in government, and to collaborate to inform the work. Our speakers today have been invited to share their vision for the future and their insights into how to make this a success. We'll hear from each of them before I take questions from the floor. I hope you will be inspired by the ambition of this vision and leave the event today with an interest in exploring how your organisation or country can support this important transition. I'll now invite the Honourable Dean Jonas, Minister for Social Transformation, Human Resource Development and the Blue Economy, to share his opening remarks on the vision for Antigua and Barbuda's Blue Economy. Minister.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me okay. I'd just like to, first of all, establish all the protocols that were already established by Joanna, Dr. Newman, and to just let you all know how happy I am to be here representing Antigua and Barbuda, and also the University of the West Indies, who we see as a key partner to make things happen for us in the Caribbean. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development estimates that by 2030, ocean industries will employ about 40 million full-time persons. And this is expected to be a growth area in offshore wind energy, marine aquaculture, fishing, and port activities. Major organizations such as the World Bank, United Nations Environmental Programme, the Global Environment Fund, the Commonwealth of Nations, Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, they're all focusing on this emerging sector given the major economic gains that are at stake. It should be pointed out that the Commonwealth Marine Economies Program was launched in 2016, and it provides support for 17 small island developing states, we refer to them as SIDS, in their efforts to protect blue economy resources and pursue economic growth. In March 2021, the CME program undertook a gap analysis of Antigua and Barbuda's blue economy planning in line with their Marine Blue Economy Plan. This gap analysis considered the relationship between existing infrastructure, connections, and planning of Antigua and Barbuda's Department of the Blue Economy and the objectives of the CME program. So you ask, why is the Center of Excellence an important element of this plan? Given the vast ocean space available to Antigua and Barbuda, we are advantageously positioned to pioneer research on blue economy and development in the region, and thus capitalize on the development potential of this emerging sector to fuel new economic activities and support industries and communities. To ensure these plans come to fruition, the government of Antigua and Barbuda is in the process of establishing a research and development center of excellence in oceanography and the blue economy, the COBE, C-O-B-E, at the Five Islands campus of the University of the West Indies, UWI. In addition to being the regional hub for academic accreditation in the area of marine studies, this will also serve as the region's research facility to inform and guide regional governments, as well as shape the concept of the blue economy within the Caribbean. The aim is to launch this Center of Excellence in August 2022, that's next year. Furthermore, the COBE aims to develop research and innovating expertise and strengthen institutional capacity in the areas related to marine science and the blue economy. It will do so while promoting economic opportunities for emerging industries such as aquaculture, marine renewable energy, biotechnology, sea vegetable farming, and many other areas, and harmonize with current planned initiatives which cover these aspects. The 5 major themes of the Center of Excellence, the COBE, are as follows. We're going to support science, we're going to mobilize resources, we're going to build businesses, we're going to build connections, and we're going to inspire action across the region. As previously mentioned, the project is led by the government of Antigua's Department of the Blue Economy and the University of the West Indies, in partnership with the Commonwealth Secretariat, the Association of Commonwealth Universities, the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, and the Center for the Environment and Fisheries and Aquaculture Science, CFAS. Senior representatives from each of these organizations currently serve on the International Steering Committee, which meets monthly with a view to providing strategic direction to establishing the COBE. Regarding the strength of the private sector in Antigua and Barbuda, the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic has evinced the problems associated with the Twin Island nations' over-reliance on the tourism industry for economic security. While the COBE must support a national reorientation towards other blue economy industries such as aquaculture and sustainable fisheries, its short-term targets must also support the tourism industry in its recovery. Additionally, the UWI's virtual roundtable meeting was held in April 2021 and highlighted the need to align the COBE's research direction according to the following demands: aligning with existing UWI research, aligning with Commonwealth research goals, and partnership alignment. The establishment of the Center of Excellence in Antigua and Barbuda benefits from the latter's co-championship of the Commonwealth Blue Charter Action Group on Sustainable Blue Economy. This affiliation of Commonwealth states encourages sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods, and ocean ecosystems health. From an educational perspective, members of the ACU further allows the Center of Excellence to enjoy access to scholarship programs such as the Queen Elizabeth Commonwealth Scholarship in support of those hoping to study master's degrees in low and middle income Commonwealth countries. There is also potential for the COBE to participate in programs such as the ACU Blue Charter Fellowships as an eligible host organization. In concluding, going forward, it is hoped that the various innovative and entrepreneurial initiatives will be successful as they will help to diversify and strengthen the economy and build more resistance to future unforeseen and unexpected shocks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I now invite Dr. Nicholas Hardman-Mountford, Head of the Oceans and Natural Resources at the Commonwealth Secretariat, to share his thoughts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Newman. And thank you, Minister, for that address. I mean, it really does bring home the importance of building, this educational capacity in the region. But I want to bring a few messages here because we're at COP. The climate is the heart of the agenda, but we must remember on Ocean Action Day today that the climate crisis is an ocean crisis. But equally to that, ocean action is climate action. And so by setting up this Centre of Excellence, this is addressing exactly what we're here to address. It's making sure there is action in the Eastern Caribbean, there is capacity building in the Eastern Caribbean, and the next generation in the Eastern Caribbean have that blue economy to help them thrive in their island communities. So just want to say a bit about the significance of the ocean to the Commonwealth. We have 47 of our 54 countries with a coastline, and we have over a third of the coastal ocean in the Commonwealth. What's more, we have amazing marine life. We have 45% of the world's reefs and over a third of the world's mangroves. So as you can see, we're talking a lot about nature-based solutions to climate at this COP, and the nature-based solutions of the Commonwealth are fundamental for supporting our sustainable blue economies. This is particularly the case in small island developing states where the ocean economy is the economy. So it's not an add-on, it's not a sector, this is the economy. And to really make that sustainable for the future is this transition to sustainable blue economies, which Antigua, Barbuda, together with Kenya, are championing across the Commonwealth through the Commonwealth Blue Charter. The Commonwealth Blue Charter is Commonwealth countries' response to the ocean climate crisis. Back in 2017, the UN Oceans Conference, Commonwealth countries got together and said, we want to work together on the ocean. We don't need more commitments. We've got more commitments than we can deliver. What we need to do is work together to implement our commitments to achieve all we need to achieve for a sustainable ocean. And so at the heads of government meeting in 2018, just 10 months later, we had a fully signed and sealed agreement between 54 countries, met with applause by the heads of government to start working together on the ocean. And to do that, we've had 16 champion countries step forward to champion 10 action groups, which are defined as by the countries' priorities, what they have told us they want to work on. And we have now 46 member countries actively engaged in one or more action groups on a variety of topics. I'll just run through what those topics are. So we have coral reef protection and restoration, championed by Australia, Belize, and Mauritius. Mangrove ecosystems and livelihoods, championed by Sri Lanka. Marine plastics, the Commonwealth Clean Ocean Alliance, championed by the UK and Vanuatu. Marine protected areas, championed by Barbados and Seychelles. Ocean acidification, championed by New Zealand. Ocean and climate change, championed by Fiji. Ocean observations and marine sciences, championed by Canada. Sustainable aquaculture, championed by Cyprus. Sustainable blue economy, we just talked about, championed by Antigua and Kenya. And sustainable coastal fisheries, championed by Kiribati and Maldives. So you see this huge range of topics Commonwealth countries are prioritising and taking forward. And we in the Secretariat are helping them with a range of activities, capacity building, training, bringing countries together to share experiences and best practices. But we now need to take things to the next stage, which is getting real on-the-ground projects going. So this is a key example of an on-the-ground project that an action group can take forward in a country, drawing on lessons learned from other countries. As you know, Anna, I'm sure you're going to say in a bit about how the ACU has been pulling together the experiences of centres of excellence in other countries to help Antigua and Barbuda here. and to then look to how that can support other countries in the region in this case. So it's a multilateral activity. The other big question we're dealing with at this COP is financing. And we're talking a lot about needing to get to that 100 billion, and it's absolutely critical because it's just the starting point. We need a lot more than that, but this COP, we've got to deliver that. But the amount of that money going to the ocean is tiny. Only 2% of the Green Climate Fund's projects to date are, the money to date is going to marine-related projects. Less than 2% of ODA investment is going to the ocean, and if we look at the funding for SDG 14, out of the developmental finance, it's 1/100 of 1% going to all the SDGs is going to SDG 14 in the ocean. If we look at philanthropy, it's about half of 1%. If the ocean has taken up 90% of the heat that's gone into the atmosphere, it has taken up a third of the carbon dioxide that's gone into the atmosphere, and it supports billions of lives and livelihoods around the world. So if we don't invest in the ocean, we're not going to have a sustainable ocean economy. We're not going to have a sustainable ocean. We're not going to be able to tackle climate change. So these are key messages we've got to take forward. But the positive side is we have partners who want to invest in these projects, who are looking for opportunities. We just launched earlier this week a sustainable business case for renewable energy in small island developing states, and the argument's moving on. And so we're really proud to be able to support our countries in this way, particularly proud of this initiative of Antigua and Barbuda, and it's going to make a huge difference to the Caribbean, to the Commonwealth.
Thank you so much, Nick. We now have Dr. Donovan Campbell, Research Collaboration Lead at the Global Institute for Climate Smart and Resilient Development at the University of the West Indies, joining us from Jamaica. Donovan, if we have you.
Yes.
Yes, we do. Wonderful.
Yes.
It's lovely to see you, Donovan. Welcome to Cop26. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Newman, and I wish I was there in person. Minister Jonas gave an excellent overview of the rationale behind setting up the Center of Excellence in Oceanography and the Blue Economy. And so what I will focus on is how this center will harness UAE's expertise in sustainable development and climate resilience. The center, in many ways, was born out of the recognition of the value of Caribbean ocean economy and the desire towards using in a sustainable way the region's ocean infrastructure as a new growth pole to strengthen and diversify economies across the region. The vision for the Center of Excellence builds on UAE's wider reputation as a leading institution in climate action. The center will aim to advance intellectual progress and strengthen institutional capacity in areas of marine sciences and the blue economy, while benefiting from societal, economic, and environmental opportunities for Caribbean within this emerging sector. The main objective, one of the main objectives in establishing the center is to ensure that it is able to harness the expertise across the university in climate resilience and sustainable development. A critical first step towards this objective was to map existing capacity in areas of oceanography and the blue economy across the university to get a clear picture of these existing resources and to ensure alignment and avoid duplication. And so one of the first things we did was to conduct a detailed internal capacity audit across six areas. One, current research. Two, teaching. Three, existing partnerships, research priorities, infrastructure, and opportunities. The capacity audit not only validated the wealth of expertise and resources across the UAE, but it also surfaced strong endorsement as a progressive step for the institution as we move into this UN-declared decade of action. As we seek to strategically position the center within the ecosystem of entities across the university to enable it to harness UWI's existing expertise and resources, three important considerations emerge from our internal deliberations. The first is that the center would be most effective if it functions as a hub, a dynamic hub to anchor all of this work that the UWI is now doing so that it can spoke it out to the rest of the world, and especially our big ocean states of the Caribbean. We are confident that the center can provide the requisite pedagogy, research, networks, and knowledge and expertise which countries across the region and beyond can access to shape their own ocean infrastructure and the blue economy. Less than a month ago, the UWI launched the Global Institute for Climate Smart and Resilient Development. The Institute is a unified structure that interlinks various UWI functional entities to create a harmonious network of resources to effectively support climate change and teaching and research across all campuses. The Center of Excellence will be nested in this ecosystem of functional networks and will serve as a coordinating hub to foster linkages with various partners with the aim of eliminating silos, encouraging collaboration, exploiting synergies, and maximizing the impact and effectiveness of our collective development of effort. The second consideration is that in order to add value, the center should build on existing strengths of entities across the UWI. We believe that if the center is to truly harness UWI's expertise in sustainable development and climate resilience, it must be built from the ground up. We have a strong legacy of world-class research and teaching on climate change and sustainable development, world-class research facilities. The center, for example, the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies, the iconic Discovery Bay Marine Lab, or even the thought leadership in climate science provided by our climate studies group, MONA. Now, building on the results of our internal capacity audit, we organized a roundtable discussion where we brought together the UWI thought leaders in the areas of oceanography and the blue economy to help shape the vision for the center. From the discussion, it was very clear, it became even clearer that the center could indeed be positioned at the cusp of aligning all the work that we have been doing as a university in the blue economy and oceanography. But what also emerged is the absolute imperative that the vision for the center be created with our UWI partners and that future plans are co-implemented with all our existing entities. And the third and final consideration, colleagues, is that to effectively harness expertise across the UWI, it should also seek to foster collaboration, both internally and externally. The consideration here is that the center should be a collaborative mechanism, one that facilitates interaction among ocean experts within the university, across our campuses, and links with other regional and extra-regional sources of expertise. In part, this requires regular structured brokered linkages with the key science policy interfaces to build the bidirectional communication between science providers and science users. The global interest in the center has also been encouraging. Last November, the ACU launched a call for expression of interest, which elicited responses from every region. Over 47 universities and 7 research centers expressed an interest in collaborating with the center. And in closing, colleagues, during this UN-declared decade of action, we are called upon to intensify our climate action and to mainstream sustainability thinking and planetary economics into what we do as we imagine the future we want into existence. It is anticipated that the center will play a pivotal role towards achieving these objectives. Thank you.
Come back to that in the question and answer section. So now I'd like to invite Samantha Cohen, who's the Chief Executive of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Innovation Council in London, to share her views. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Joanna, and thank you, Minister, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sorry that I can't join you in person as well, but it's wonderful to be here for this fantastic and inspiring panel today. And as the CEO of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, I'd first like to commend the government of Antigua and Barbuda, one of our key partners, for their commitment and action towards transitioning to a blue economy. This project, as we've all said today, is an excellent model of collaboration between the public sector, higher education, and the private sector to create impactful change at pace. Climate change and the COVID pandemic have increased the urgency of this transition to a blue economy. It is important for Antigua and Barbuda to reduce the over-reliance on tourism, as Minister Jonas said, which accounts for more than half of its GDP, but to also to green the existing tourism sector and to support sustainable and resilient economic development by diversifying the economy. The establishment of a Centre of Excellence for Oceanography in the Blue Economy will be the driver of innovation and policy that will open up investment opportunities in areas such as marine renewable energy, ecotourism, technology, higher education, and sustainable development. CWIC will be working hard to attract foreign direct investment to the islands through private equity, foundations, and institutional investors to create long-term returns, new economic partnerships, and investment diversity. Last month, CWIC announced the establishment of a commercial Commonwealth Climate Growth Fund with 25 million seed funding from the government of the Cayman Islands. This fund aims to be 100 million, and it is for projects all across the Commonwealth with a focus on small island states. Antigua is making great progress to become more sustainable while these major initiatives are being developed. Recently, Antigua and Barbuda was named the 2021 Emerging Sustainable Destination of the Year, based on the country's very excellent efforts to promote sustainable tourism, being the first Caribbean island to ban single-use plastic bags and polystyrene products. Antigua and Barbuda has also established the Green Corridor, which is a collection of environmentally friendly hotels, resorts, and businesses stretching along the southwest coast. The government aims to expand the Green Corridor by attracting new properties and attractions to further establish and capture the exponentially growing area in ecotourism. As we've heard today, Antigua's vast area of ocean is currently underutilized and can become a new economic zone, a new sector for generating jobs, which includes sustainable tourism, fisheries, and aquaculture. Next week in London, Antigua and Barbuda, supported by CWIC, is hosting a business forum to mark the country's 40th anniversary of independence. The opportunities are open to the private sector to invest in this dynamic country and to support its transition to a blue economy, supported by the Centre of Excellence. CWEIC will be seeking investors who wish to join the country on its pathway to greater economic prosperity, using its impressive natural resources to build greater resilience in its economy and exciting opportunities for the next generation. We are incredibly proud to be a part of this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. And finally, we have reflections and recommendations from Professor Lisa Morguera, who is the Principal Investigator from the University of Strathclyde's Global Challenges Research Fund's One Ocean Hub. Lisa, if you may.
For this opportunity to share some of the learning in creating fair partnerships in research that can really contribute to policy development, but also engagement with different sectors of society and the private sector. I'm hoping to have a couple of slides on the screen just to, may not be this one.
Just one moment.
Yes,
There we go.
thank you so much. So if you go on to the next, the One Ocean Hub is a global research collaboration, bringing together a variety of research institutions in the Caribbean, so the University of West Indies, the two actually regional universities in the world, so also the University of the South Pacific, the Blue Economy Research Institute at the University of Seychelles, and many other universities in South Africa, Ghana, and Namibia, as well as several UK research institutions, university, as well as CIFAS, for instance. And if we click on the next, I think we have worked together for over 4 years, co-developing the vision for the One Ocean Hub, and already being able in that process of understanding our mutual opportunities and needs to share learning at the cross-regionally and at the global level. And for instance, one I think of the more exciting examples is that University of Seychelles led the development of an interdisciplinary MOOC on the blue economy, drawing upon the expertise of colleagues from across all the universities involved. And maybe I'm particularly proud also of the fact that the leading researchers at Seychelles was a woman scholar. But also we've been lucky to work in countries with governments, with communities and different sectors on at different levels of developing their blue economies. In South Africa, blue economy policy has been developed and implemented for a few years. We have identified bottlenecks and opportunities and work very closely from the very local to the national level to see in what ways research institutions and collaboration can support a process where we address the challenges of sustainability and inclusivity of blue economies. And that has already led to lessons learned, comparative research, and replicable methods that we are now discussing in the context of Ghana, where we don't have yet a blue economy, and in the context of Namibia, where that policy, a blue economy policy, is starting to be implemented. And if we click on to the next, and I think what was really interesting, as I think was highlighted by our colleague in the University of West Indies, is understanding what were the existing capacities and the gaps in capacities, and then co-developing a program to share know-how and processes that would be applicable across and bring together researchers from across the world. While working with all these research institutions, we've also worked very closely with several UN bodies, as well as the Commonwealth Secretariat and other partners, to understand what are the gaps and the challenges that have been highlighted internationally, and what are the research gaps that maybe the UN itself is unable to address, and how we can bring the knowledge from the bottom up, the knowledge from our interactions with different partners in UN fora to make progress on the basis of the real life understanding and solutions that are coming from research collaborations. And that has very much to do with a lot of aspects of the blue economy that are crucial for climate change adaptation and mitigation, looking at the role and the needs of small-scale fishers, ocean plastics, the role of marine spatial planning, the role of deep sea ecosystem services, as well as the role of cultural heritage and the voices of children and youth and their human rights to be part of that solution. So if we go on to the next, there's really two things I want to share more concretely in terms of our the partnerships, the results of this partnership that may be of interest for others interested in building this kind of collaboration. The first is that it was very important from the very start to speak very frankly about what didn't work in the past in international research collaborations, and on that basis build principles that would allow us to guide our decisions together to avoid those blind spots and those hard lessons learned. And so we developed a series of principles to guide our action that were very much based on the interregional dialogue and have served us well to understand how research is important and what kind of equity issues it raises among younger and older researchers, female and male researchers, but also researchers in different countries with different pressures, both to flourish individually, but also for institutions to flourish and benefit from each other. And if we click on to the next, we have then been able to implement those principles in very practical tools. A common publication strategy, which again looks at recognition of inputs, recognition of contributions, support, peer learning. Equally, I think data management is a crucial issue where we need to really develop new approaches for sharing equitably the data and the benefits for knowledge co-production. And equally, questions of safeguarding with the different partners we work with and support for early career researchers. And so we're sharing our code of practice and have very much engaged with colleagues at the UN Decade for Ocean Science to really draw on what we've learned and see what can be learned for others to take similar paths. And finally, on my last slide, I want to show what we have innovated in terms of collaborating with governments and the private sector in using research in ways that brings not only an integrated evidence base, but also helps creating a generative space for dialogue in debates on the blue economy that may be quite tense sometimes as different sectors seek access to the ocean. And we have so many competing challenges related to climate change impacts, protection of biodiversity. And so we have very much engaged with the arts as part of our research. So if you can click on to the next, for instance, one of the most incredible experiences has been really led by South African researchers using participatory research to document and co-develop an evidence base about how many communities were relating to the oceans and felt they were left out from decision-making on the blue economy. And that really synthesized this multiplicity of views, but also the richness of the knowledge and the understanding that could be brought into dialogue with policymakers and interested private sector. And very much the experience of this interactive theater and very, I think, also emotional engagement with science and with the voices of those that are left behind has led to multiple conversations with different sectors of society whose inputs were integrated into the script. And the script continues to travel and influence the thinking and the understanding of what is at stake as we implement a blue economy policy. The second arts approach we are developing, if you click on to the next, has to do with supporting community-led art projects where they can convey in their own terms their priorities, their vision, and their needs for the ocean. And through the use of art for others who may not have the same exposure or understanding of different groups within society to relate to that knowledge and to be able to both understand maybe forms of indigenous and local knowledge, but also to identify, for instance, opportunities for creative economies and the need to protect cultural heritage. So with that, I'll stop, but just saying that there's a lot of lessons learned that we're keen to share. And in fact, even those very early lessons are really important to set up similar partnerships, I think, on the right foot.
Thank you so much, Elisa. And we are extremely keen to learn those lessons and also connect with you. And it was actually quite striking to see that all the partners in the One Hub Alliance were all ACU members and actually fit very well with the call that we put out earlier for expressions of interest. And we'll be planning the next steps in the early new year and hopefully working with you very closely. So you've heard from the Minister, you've heard the very firm commitment to this vision for the blue economy and for Antigua and Barbuda, but also for the Eastern Caribbean region and beyond. You've heard from Nick on the Commonwealth Secretariat's a vision for the blue economy and its commitment across Commonwealth countries, and also, Nick, your clarion call for the extraordinary range of experiences within the Commonwealth that speak to the oceans and to the need for oceans to be central to any climate action. We've heard from Sam Cohen, who is hopefully still online, on the commitment of the Commonwealth Enterprise Council on their commitment to provide funding and find funding for these initiatives. And from Donovan Campbell, a very fantastic and eloquent introduction to the work that UE already does and the really sensible approach of looking at what partnerships they already have, where their expertise lies, where the gaps are, and how they can work well with the partners, including the ACU. So I'm now going to hand over to the audience and ask if anyone has any questions for any of our wonderful panel members, and hand over to this gentleman there.
Thank you so much. This is really one of the panels that I've enjoyed the most since the beginning of the side events. And I wanted to say that it's good, all the work that is being done, in particular in the small island states. But I wanted to use the opportunity to also invite the various stakeholders to also look at collaborations with, emerging African states. In particular, I love what is going on in Antigua and Barbuda. I love, I took a few notes that I'm going to take back home. For example, I want Nigeria to be able, in particular Lagos, where I work with the Lagos state government. I want to go back home and advise my governor to introduce sustainable a green corridor in Lagos, for example, so that we can also be like Antigua and Barbuda. Perhaps we would also learn. I've taken the Honorable Minister's details about how you're doing it and how we can also create green corridors where we have tourism sites and hotels and other things that are, climate friendly. In particular, I also like the fact, and congratulations on being, the sustainable destination of the year with sustainable tourism. That's also something that Lagos can learn from you. So I all look forward to, following up with this conversation. You mentioned the gentleman, sorry, I forgot his name. Yes, you spoke earlier about, you listed a few champions, Antigua and Barbuda championing this and championing that. But it's so unfortunate there's no African country championing everything in that list. So we need to be able to do more to ensure that we can also get some climate champions from sub-Saharan Africa. But it's been a wonderful session, and I want to commend the Association of Commonwealth Universities for putting this together. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I can assure you that we have also had expressions of interest from universities in Nigeria to get involved with COBE. And so we can let you know who they are after this event. Are there any other questions? I think, Nick, would you like to come
So
in?
I was just going to respond to that and say, absolutely, we're working not just with our small island developing states, but with the, African countries as well on a whole range of topics. We just ran an ocean hackathon recently, and one of the runners-up was from Nigeria, a guy called Colin Zakumba, who wants to put smart bins in Lagos, as a way of dealing with plastic pollution. Some really amazing things. I think I want to go to your point about partnerships, and it's not just about what countries are doing. Although we do have African champion countries, so Kenya is co-championing the blue economy with Antigua Barbuda. We have Seychelles championing marine protected areas. African states are stepping forward as champions and leading on this too. But it's partnerships, it's others too. That can be regional governments, state governments, city governments. It can be philanthropy, it can be private sector businesses, academia, and so on. So we've partnered with ACU, and ACU have provided Blue Charter fellowships to exchange researchers working on plastic pollution across the whole Commonwealth, which has been amazing. And I'm sure there were some African scientists involved in that as well. And other partners like with, we did something with Arizona State University yesterday on the Allen Coral Atlas, which is mapping all the coral reefs around the world. And we had just announced today a few things. So first of all, we are going to do a project on climate and ocean risk vulnerability with the Stimson Centre, funded by the UK, and through the Ocean Risk Resilience Action Alliance. And we are also looking to fund more climate ocean work through putting an ocean finance advisor in another Commonwealth facility called the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, which is really about trying to facilitate access to climate funding for Commonwealth countries. We have actually some of the advisors in the audience here. I'm sure we'll be able to say a bit more about that later. But, so we're going to make sure we work to bring more of that towards the ocean. So all these things are things we're working together on that I think hopefully will provide those opportunities you're looking for.
Thank you very much, Nick. And we have a question from, we have two questions. So Nick, the gentleman at the back, and then Nicholas Watts.
Yes, good afternoon. It's good to be here, and I must commend the panelists for doing an amazing job. I am the Honorable Eric Evelyn, Minister of Environment from St. Kitts and Nevis, and I just wanted to raise two questions or comments with regards to the work that is being done by the Commonwealth with regards to the Blue Charter. I'm just wondering what proportion of that work, how much of that work involves the work on restoration of reefs? Because of course we know that the health of the reefs would reflect on the tourism, and of course the health of the fishery sector would also reflect on the health of the reefs as well. So I was just wondering what proportion of the work is being focused on the restoration of reefs. And with regards to fisheries as well, of course, once we're talking about the blue economy, we must be holistic and we must talk about fisheries. And there's a major issue, there's a major problem that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis with regards to ciguatera. And we have a problem. Sometimes we have several persons ending up in the hospital. It affects the fishermen themselves, because sometimes when you go to purchase fish, you're wondering, should I purchase fish from this fisherman? Because I don't know where this fisherman would have caught his fish from, right? And I know that the fisheries department at home, both in St. Kitts and Nevis, would have been trying to do some work with regards to, or some research with regards to the ciguatera, but they always seem to stumble on a block. So I'm wondering if there's any work being done with that, and where can we get information with regards to ciguatera and the ciguatera poisoning?
Before you answer that, Nick, can I just take the one other question, because we're going to have to wrap up after that, and I'm going to ask each panelist to just give me their final thoughts. So I'll take two questions together and then we'll come back.
Thank you, Chair. I was particularly impressed with, well, and energized by the whole event. I think it's really exciting. I remember the SIDS meeting in Samoa 2014. We started to explore these sorts of things, and to see how far it's come is wonderful. I was also impressed by the highlighting of equity and principles in the One Ocean Hub approach and the approach to art. So one question is how you engage with non-formal education institutions such as museums. That's a particular interest I have. And the other question was a little bit more about how the One Ocean Hub relates to Antigua and Barbuda's Kobe, if it's structured or if it's a sort of ongoing dialogue.
Okay, thank you very much. So perhaps, Nick, if you would like to answer the Minister's question first, and then Elisa, if I can come to you. Now come to the Minister.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll actually pass it to the Minister here as well to address some of those questions as well, if you would like to comment. Yeah. So thank you for that question. There's a whole range of things there, and really would be very interested in exploring all of it further with you. You're absolutely right about reefs, protecting reef systems, and the link between that and fisheries and ciguatera. When you have degraded reefs, the algae on them is what the fish eats and it poisons them, and then you get ciguatera. In terms of the technical specifics of how to move forward, I'll refer to my colleague Steve Addison there, who would be able to work for the Centre for Environment, Fisheries and Aquaculture Science, and they have scientists working on that in the Caribbean. But in terms of the value of reefs there, it's massively important. And we know reefs are a resilient ecosystem for the Caribbean. If we want resilience, we have to have healthy reefs. Same with mangroves. And so we have action groups on mangrove restoration. We have an action group on coral reef protection and restoration. We have partnerships on restoring mangroves. In fact, yesterday we did a great panel. We had Sam Tyker from Coral Vita, who, those of you who watched the Earthshot Prize know they won the Ocean Earthshot this year, and they're from Bahamas. So it's a neighbor there, small island but large ocean state that is leading the world in coral restoration and wants to scale that up across the Caribbean and across the world. These are the sort of partnerships we're developing through the Commonwealth Blue Charter action groups to really help countries like St. Kitts and Nevis to be able to learn from others, and we can work together and implement these things. And I'll just hand over to the Minister to add to that.
Yes, yes, I'm glad that the Minister from St. Kitts asked that question. See, one of the key reasons why we are building that Center of Excellence at the UWI is to support the efforts that you just referred to. When I became Minister of Blue Economy, we realized that across the region, we did lack a lot of the expertise that are needed, not only in the sciences related to, the reefs, protecting our reefs, but across the board. The whole point of the Center of Excellence is to upskill our people across the Caribbean when it comes to ocean science, to provide training and in all the areas of discipline when it comes to that. And so, yes, we're going to be building alliances and so on, but the whole idea fundamentally is to train our people in ocean sciences. And it's not just about the science, it's also about the business side of it. At UWI, as you know, we do offer a lot of business-related studies, MBAs and other things like that. What we're trying to do is to have maybe what we may call the B MBAs, the blue MBAs that are ocean related. We want to train all our economists in blue economy related business, our accountants, all our business related studies. We also want to include ocean related and blue related studies in these. So yes, we're going to be building capacity in sciences, but also in business that will address the concerns that you have with regards to fishing and protecting reefs and that sort of thing. The expertise are definitely needed, and that's why we're doing this.
Thank you very much, Minister. Elise, if you want to answer the question that Nicholas asked about how the Global One Hub Alliance will work with the COBE, that would be wonderful.
Yes, no, thank you very much also for expressing your support for our work on principles. And I'm also pleased to say that many other colleagues and ocean research centers across Europe and elsewhere have started to look to implement them or discuss how they can support similar partnerships. And I think that speaks to, for instance, our potential engagement with museums. We are looking into it. We have a whole research program looking at how we bring arts together. And there's two key questions there. One is, how we can co-develop a role for museums to play in inter and transdisciplinary ocean research. And that's a new question. But also how we can do that in a fair way. And that might also require addressing, depending on the museum, whether we have colonial legacies and how we can, again, learn from that and build on that basis to co-develop a different type of knowledge co-production. On COBE, as One Ocean Hub, we have made a submission of interest. We stand ready to start a dialogue, but I think, first of all, we're waiting to hear more and be able to listen to the needs. I think knowing that there's been a mapping of capacity and the development of the vision is really critical for us to be able to respond and start a dialogue, but really on the listening side first. At the moment, our collaboration with the University of West Indies is limited to the Faculty of Laws, and that has been a really interesting entry point to look at what may be replicable from the other work that spans across marine and social sciences in other countries and regions, and hopefully that can be an interesting basis looking at inclusive and sustainable blue economy from a human rights and environment perspective to expand the conversation.
Thank you so much. Well, we need to wrap up. And so I'm going to invite the panel to share their closing remarks in 90 seconds. And I'm going to give the Minister the last word. So I'm going to go to our two panelists who've joined us remotely first. If I can go to Sam and then to Donovan, if that's okay. Sam, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, Joanna. I hope you can see me.
Yes,
I think this panel today has been incredibly energizing, as one of the audience members said, and I think it's clear we're on the right path. We are now attracting interest, we're building momentum, and I love the Minister's idea of the blue MBAs, and we just need to get the message out now and to attract investment and interest in students and really build this centre of excellence for oceanography in the blue economy into a world-class centre, and I'm fully confident we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you. If I can now move to Donovan.
Yes, thank you. I also very much enjoyed the discussion. And just to close off, I would say never before have universities been so central to the global development agenda. Never before have research, science, and knowledge been so widely recognized for their direct contribution to policies and decisions that have an immediate impact on lives, jobs, and well-being. And I'll just close off with a quote from Professor Denzel Williams, who is a principal of the Five Islands campus and very much a champion of the Center of Excellence for Oceanography and the Blue Economy. The center could play a major role in diversifying the economies of the region as we look for new growth poles to drive sustained and equitable growth. The traditional sectors of commodity and low-value services will not be able to deliver on the kinds of growth needed to lift persons out of poverty and allow our citizens to live a decent life. The blue economy, on the other hand, has vast potential to generate mass employment, given its proclivity to scale. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donovan, for those very inspiring words. If I could then turn to Nick.
Thank you, Joanna. So, as I said at the beginning, the climate crisis is an ocean crisis, but ocean action is climate action. We need to work on blue solutions, and we need investments in things like the Center for Oceanography and Blue Economy as not just an educational institution, but as a climate solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to Lisa.
Yes, maybe a final word on partnerships. And I think how working on fair partnerships, understanding what is fair and needed and mutual benefit within research, but also with all the other partners takes time and is quite sometimes a difficult road to take, but it's really been the key for transformative change. And I think has really been what has allowed us as a community of researchers to look at the intersected challenges of marine biodiversity, ocean, climate change, and sustainable and inclusive economy in new ways that have given all of us hope that research can play a really positive role and support governments and others in making meaningful change.
Thank you very much. And Minister, if you would have the last word, please.
Yes, thank you very much. And I've noted all the comments that are made here today. And I must point out that the Center of Excellence is not an Antiguan thing. While the government of Antigua and myself may have brought this to bear, it is a UWI institution. It is a part of the University of the West Indies. It will benefit the entire Caribbean and maybe the world even. The UWI is now one of the premier educational institutions in the world. And in partnering with the ACU, it even brings to bear a lot more depth and a lot more breadth as well to what we're going to accomplish, because we're going to be drawing resources from all over the Commonwealth. From Australia to India to Canada, there are universities in Africa as well. I mean, we're going to be drawing on resources across the entire world and bring those to bear to educate our people, not just in science, but also in business related to our oceans and blue economy. And so we should all be excited about this. And I'm hoping that the team will continue to produce so that we can definitely accomplish our plans to launch this by August next year. That is the key date. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Minister, and thank you to all the speakers for such inspiring visions and such fantastic conversation that we've had today. And I think everybody probably feels slightly uplifted and have some hope after this event. So I'd like to, if you could join me to thank the speakers. Thank you very much. Pleasure. That was wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm so nice.